Hi there, and welcome to the 20 Minute Moat, a Verloop.io podcast. Today, we're talking to Siraj Uddin, the man who's built and led customer support teams at some of India's most valuable companies like Flipkart, PayTM, and Blackbuck. Siraj now heads customer experience at Transak, an early stage crypto payment gateway based out of London. We talked to Siraj about the importance of customer support in early stage startups,
because your early adopters, are the biggest asset that you can have in a company. These are the people who are trusting you when you have nothing.
how he built support for the Indian masses,
The customer base at Blackbuck was a customer from a tier 2 or a tier 3 city.
and how COVID 19 affected how he perceives the industry.
I think this was possibly the toughest time of my career, right?
Can you start off by introducing yourself, telling us where you work and what you do for them?
So currently I'm working with Transact as Director Customer Support and Operations. My role probably at Transact is making sure that our customers are having the right experience, right from onboarding to anytime they have an issue, they can reach out to the team and the team is resolving their problems.
Can you tell us more about Transact? Can you describe Transact as a company to someone who's maybe not heard of it before?
You can look at Transact as an early stage Razorpay. Like in India, we have Razorpay, the payment gateway provider. So basically, this is a payment gateway provider for crypto world, like the cryptocurrency. If you want to buy cryptocurrency, there should be somebody who is moving your fiat currency like USD or your GBP. We are supporting like 29 different countries. So any fiat currency that you have, you want to use that to buy cryptocurrency, you can come to a platform. Or if you're a business who is trying to onboard customers to do stuff on your DeFi applications, you can use our payment gateway to onboard those customers. They can pay in fiat and they can receive crypto, or they can sell their crypto and get money back in fiat. So we're like a bridge between fiat and the crypto world.
So you sort of joined Transact when it's a fairly early stage startup, like you mentioned. You are director of customer support and operations. So sort of this early on, what kind of processes are you trying to set in place? What kind of tickets do you receive, and how do you resolve them?
I think for early stage startups, it's absolutely important that you have a good customer support because your early adopters, are the biggest asset that you can have as a company. These are the people who are trusting you when you have nothing. And if you have to make sure that when they're trusting you, you also have a strong process and customer support and are there to kind of help them out when they have any questions and they have some problem. And especially when you're an early stage startup, you have very limited resources around engineering or any other team, right? So it's absolutely important that you have human beings there, not really just a bot, kind of answering to customers. And especially when you talk about the cryptocurrency and everything, and there's a large issue with that, with trust. I think Transact is one of the very few companies where we are making sure that we have human beings 24 by 7 to answer to our customers, right? They're trusting us with their money, and we want to make sure, like, if they have any questions, anything which is gone wrong for XYZ reason, there is somebody to answer them, right? And I think by for Transact, we have not done any kind of marketing campaigns or anything like that. The volume that we are getting is purely organic right now. Every single day, customers are telling us that they love our product, they love the service that we are giving, the customer support is amazing. And I think this is what we live for, right? And this gives us a good foundation.
This obviously seems like $1 billion opportunity waiting to happen. And you'd have some experience with this because the last company you worked for, which was Blackbuck, was in fact $1 billion company. Before we start off, right? Can you give me like a brief thing about what Blackbuck is and what Blackbuck does or did?
So basically, what Blackbuck does is anything and everything around trucking. So I was part of a team which used to provide services around trucking, like your FASTag, your GPS, your fuel, your insurance, and everything for the truck. So they're solving a real problem in the market. I was lucky to be part of the organization, and I think.
So can you talk to me about like sort of the tickets that the kind tickets that you saw being raised, right, and how they were different from what you get at Transact, and B, to a lesser extent, sort of the challenges that you faced as a customer support team with Blackbuck.
So I think you have rightly said the customer base at BlackBuck has been very different from the customers that maybe I was dealing with at PayTM or probably at Flipkart. The customer base at BlackBuck was a customer from a tier two or a tier three city. Then the customer tickets used to be more around how do I do this, how do I do that, where do I find this, where do I find that. During the initial phase when I joined the company, we start creating voice of customer, and looking at the kind of contacts that we were getting. And we realized that a lot of these contacts are basically just educational, like we just have to kind of educate our customer. And most of these features were already available on our app. It's just that they don't know where to go and find those. So we started like creating video tutorials, and on the app, like some of the self-serve models we create kind of, when they're trying to raise the complaint, we often show them some videos where, they know that, okay, this is what, if I do, then my issue is resolved. And then like, obviously you cannot have everything in English, you know, to have like regional languages and everything. So we build those features onto the app. I think it was very different. Like, yeah, I'll tell you, when I joined the company, then COO of the company, like Abhishek Verma, who told me that, Siraj, I understand you come from these companies, and I need to understand the customer base is different here. I need to think very different, and make sure that you are building a customer support for rural India. And I think that one thought process kind of changed my thinking. And trust me, like it has been an amazing journey there. We started with a CSAT of like 53%. And as I was leaving the company, I think we moved to a 75% CSAT, which is like, I think, one of the best, compared to the industry.
And to that, and I think you basically mentioned a couple of metrics that you track. So let's talk more about that in depth. Talk to me about some of the metrics that you track while you're at Transact, some of the metrics you tracked while you were at Blackbuck, the metrics that are necessarily not the same, and the metrics that are in fact the same.
I think broadly, Anush, there are two major metrics that I drive. One is like order to contact. This is a metric which can be related to your contact reduction. It can help you measure your cost, efficiency, revenue, cost to the company, everything. Like, that's a metric. It's like a mother metric, and you can derive like every other possible metric in the organization, and tie it to the same, right? The second metric that I drive across any companies that I have been like is the CSAT. You can have like an internal quality team telling you like the quality of your service is like 90%, 95%, and all that. But maybe the customer does not feel the same way, right? It's important that the customer is telling that you are a 95, or right. So these are broadly like two metric. If you really ask me, and if you are able to do a great job in driving these two metric, I think the rest of the sub metric will be taken care.
Sort of in customer support, there are very rarely sort of events that just completely change the way the sort of industry works or the sort of like vertical works. COVID 19 was obviously one of those inflection points for customer support, right? Because suddenly you had a system where, depending on the company where you worked at, you either saw just a massive increase of tickets or a massive decrease of tickets, right? So, for example, if you had to go back to March 2020, where we went into a full lockdown, right? I'm assuming trucking became sort of difficult to do, and people's challenges didn't necessarily disappear, but they sort of morphed into different aspects, right? Talk to me about some of the biggest challenges you faced, either professionally or personally, right? During say 2020.
I think this was possibly the toughest time of my career, right? Right from probably planning to set the team to work from home, to setting expectations on, and to handling all the job insecurities that the team were going through. I think it was emotionally very tough time for me. Some of the biggest challenges obviously was, like you mentioned, like trucking took a like huge hit because of COVID, right? Our volumes, I think, tanked to like to probably zero, I would say, in the first few months. I would say we were not sure like what's going to happen. It was very uncertain time for all of us, right? Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenge for me was to let go some of the best people that were there in my team. But what we did as a company obviously was to make sure that we reached out to the companies that were doing really well. Like if you remember, like the pharma companies and all these companies were doing really well, right? And obviously we reached out to them, made sure that our people got placed in those companies. And also at the same time, I personally reached out to my peer group, right? So yeah, I think it was possibly the toughest time of my career, but I think we all learned and grew from there.
Talk to me about the biggest change that you saw as an industry veteran come around in customer support over the pandemic.
COVID has accelerated the entire digitization and that by I think few decades. What probably couldn't happen in the last 10, 20 years has happened probably in just last few months. I was talking to an Amazon delivery person here in my hometown, and I asked him like, what is the number of deliveries that you get per day? So he was saying, it used to be like 30 units a day, and he mentioned that during COVID, it went like 5x of that. People started going online, and that too from a small town like where I am right now. And the same thing has happened, I think, in the customer support industry. People, want to make sure that they're able to do, more with less. And that being said, I think it's time people have started building solutions which could be like self-serve bots and things like that, right? Looking at, maybe you look at Amazon. Amazon is always ahead of time, right? If you look at the Amazon's help support center and everything, you realize that they are possibly solving, I think, 80% of the complaints on self-serve itself, and they have built it like so nice and effortlessly. You can go there and get your issues sorted without even talking to a human being, and you don't feel like that you're missing anything. And they built it so well. So I think a lot of these companies are learning, and I think it's time that people will, companies have started adopting. And then the same thing we have done at Blackbuck. We started building like self-serve FAQ models and videos and all this stuff during that time. And we have definitely seen a good amount of cost reduction and contact reduction and everything. And I think, yeah, that's going to be the future. I think data-driven approach to solving customer problem is going to be the future of customer support.
Right. And to that end, what do you see what do you see more of and less of in customer support in 2021, for example?
Chat as a channel, I see like, people will be adopting like more chat experiences, right? I think voice as a channel is dying slowly, is what I would say. With options, what you can build on chat and self-serve and everything, I think if you ask me, am I comfortable like picking up my phone and calling somebody? Not really. Like I don't have time for all that. Like maybe I'll just ping somebody on my WhatsApp page, and then the freedom is more important. You want to be emotionally free, and I think chat and all those is something like the self-serve bots and everything are something which I see like people will do more and more, and use the data that they are receiving to be more proactive to solve customer problems. And this is something which I started when I was at Flipkart in back in like 2015, 16 types, right? This is called proactive support. If you are a technology company, then you need to really identify where is the system breaking before even customer gets to realize that there is something which went wrong, right? And you need to proactively solve that problem before even customer reaching out to you. I think that's the future, right? You don't want your customer to call you and then you realize that there's a problem in the system. You're a technology company, you should by design know what is breaking in a system and make proactive fix to it. I think that's the future. And I think what you asked is less, I would say, the stupid IVR where you really have to go through like, one, two, three, four, and then like this and that and all that stuff is something which is going to die very soon. I think there is still companies who do that, but I think that's not a smart thing to do.
Right. And to sort of move into the more open ballpark of questions, right? I think you mentioned Amazon, right, as one of the companies, and this is consistently shown up in like the multiple people I've spoken to. Everyone just really, really likes Amazon because when you look at what they're doing, it is in fact just mind-boggling, right? To provide that kind of like customer support of that quality at that scale, right, really shows you like the chops behind the people that sort of do the work in that company. Talk to me about other companies that you think provide some great customer support. This could either be companies that you sort of that you interact with on a day-to-day basis, or companies that you know professionally that do a great job.
Yeah, I think Flipkart. I worked there. It's not because I worked there. They have taken inspiration from Amazon. I would say. I have seen the structure that they have. You need to have a dedicated customer, success or a customer experience team, right? You have a customer support team which does all this stuff, right? And then you need to have a customer experience or a customer success team which is using this data in a large company like the Flipkart and Amazon. They have this kind of setup, right? Or at PayTM, I did build that kind of a setup. Or at Blackbuck, we had a small team, like that. So what this team would typically do is, take this entire data and information and everything available through customer support, use this and analyze this, do RCA and figure out like what's happening, why these contacts are coming, create a framework around that, and then connect the entire organization to kind of build solution based on what the VOC, the voice of the customer is saying. And I think in most of these companies, like at Amazon, as far as I know, I think they're mission driven. If you see, their mission is to be like the most customer centric company in the world, right? They want to be, that's the mission. They're driven by that mission. And you see a lot of companies have this like fancy thing on their wall saying, we are customer first and we are customer like driven. And in reality, like inside the boardroom, they are not really talking about the customer experience or customer support. They're just talking about revenue and money and all that, right? So, there are like few companies that, I think I have high regards for. Like, one is like obviously Cred. If you really see, like, now they're really, really invested into like delivering that experience, and you can figure that out when you look at the app itself.
Gotcha. You've obviously been, I think, a veteran of the space, right? You've worked here for several years, I think close to a decade now in some capacity, right? What do you think are some of the most important lessons you've learned about customer support? This could either be stuff that you've absorbed while working, or stuff that you want to tell people who sort of enter the industry that they should learn faster.
Yeah, I think first of all, like you need to know that this is an industry that you can build a career in. If you really see like people from IIT, IIMs, and all that, they don't want to get into like customer support. They think like, okay, this is for not for me. Like I want to do something bigger than this and all that. But we need to realize that customer support has not been like how it used to be 10 years back. The company's strategy, a lot of these startups and companies, their strategy depend on how they deliver the customer experience. One, like, you need to be really passionate about and like compassionate towards your customer. I think whatever you build has to be like from the customer and work backwards. Not like you have some fancy idea and you build it and you sell it in the market. It's not like that. I would say that you need to have that level of compassion if and passionate about delivering great experience to your customer, to feel that. And then the second thing, like if you're part of this, this customer support industry, right? You need to make sure that you are able to link whatever you are doing. It's very tough. Like, see, experience is a feeling, right? Customer experience, right? It's experience that a customer is getting. It's a feeling. You cannot really describe everything in terms of like money or in terms of uh, some kind of metric, right? But I think as a customer support leader, like whoever, if you're leading a team, if you're leading, if you're heading customer support in any companies, I think it's important that somewhere you are able to relate this experience to some metric which makes sense to the leadership and align them, to kind of make sure that you're able to push your agenda and you are able to align them to the vision that you want to deliver. So I think that has worked out for me in a lot of these companies. And I would say, like, it's important that you align the leadership team, and align your metric to revenue as far as possible. And I think you will get support. And without product support, Anush, like trust me, it's not possible for anybody at a customer support, like whoever is heading a customer support team. If you don't have tech support, if you don't have product support, if you don't have like top level alignment to what you want to deliver, it's like really tough. It's really tough.
So like floor is yours, 30 seconds, just tell the people what's going on, how they want to, if they want to reach out to you, how they can do that.
Yeah, I think I'm very active on LinkedIn. I think the place to reach me would be there. I'm not on any other social sites. Like I'm on Twitter and also on LinkedIn. So I think if anyone wants to reach me, I think that's the place.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the 20 Minute Moat presented by Verloop.io. We post new episodes, bonus content, and full interviews on our website and social media. Just visit verloop.io/podcast, no more. If you like what you heard, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you listen from. It means a lot and it helps support the show.